on the radio in like 2 seconds. Hey,
Okay.
everybody, Laura Mazurk, host of Style and Empowerment Chat with Laura and Friends. I have a very special guest. We're getting ready to come up on air in just a second and talk all things entertainment and music with entrepreneur, amazing woman, Leighanne Littrell. We'll be bringing you all the behind the scenes Backstreet Boys and what it's like to be in business and family together. And welcome back to this week's edition of Style and Empowerment Chat with Lauren Friends Radio. Thank you for tuning in all around the world. So, as we celebrate year 6 of our show, I am so excited to welcome this week's guest who wears many, many hats: philanthropist, actress, model, director, record producer, talent manager, Leighanne Littrell. I'm sorry, Littrell.
Literal-
Yes.
Literally.
It's literally.
Well, no, but I
Okay.
have to say because it's literal and my name's Lee. They call me Lee, so I'm like literally, literally. So that's how you remember it. Literally.
That's so funny. I'm like, I have been practicing it all week because as long as I was aware of the Backstreet Boys, of course, I've been a fan for many years. We'll go into that. But I always thought it was Latrell until when I was watching some documentaries and stuff and just getting my factoids and stuff. And I had seen, I forget whether it was the DNA documentary because they've done a couple, which I love, which is awesome. And Brian was talking about one of the fans that asked a question about the relationship between back in the day with songs they passed on with NSYNC and so he actually, in the course of answering the question, he's like, no, it's literal, not literal. I'm like, really? I'm like, oh,
We just answer to it all now because literally, like, what are you gonna do? Like, honestly,
I'm like, all these years I've been saying it wrong. So I'm like,
everybody has.
okay. So, Leighanne, you just have such an interesting story and life. Excited to dive into. So, you started out modeling when you were 14 years old.
Yes. Gosh, probably even younger than that. Modeling, acting here in Atlanta, Georgia, and just one thing always leads to the other. I think I even did one of those modeling schools, where you learn to walk and you get your headshot taken, and I was all that.
So, now what initially just inspired you to pursue modeling and acting and said, hey, this is something I love and want to try out?
I think when I was really young, I very much like my kid is that I always put on a play. I was always writing or singing, or I was just always very expressive and creative. And I think I just knew that's what I wanted to do for like my entire life. So it was going out. I was going to move to California. I was actually going to surf. Thank God I didn't do that. Um, and just be a model actress. And I gave myself goals and did it. So I did everything that I could do here in Atlanta. And then I moved out, like, and I did it on my own.
And that's pretty daunting, as a young woman and at that time. So that's a lot of courage. So hats off to you.
Thank you. I know I look back now and think, wow, you had a lot of oomph to do that because it's scary. I mean, this day and age too, like I don't know how I would feel doing it this day and age, but back
Yeah.
in the day, I mean, I came from every acting school you could go here, agents, pounding the pavements. And then I got Mary Ellis Bunham and Murray. They did it's a real world a long, long time ago.
Yes, I was just gonna say they're the producers of the original Real Worlds.
Yes, they did a show called Jam Bay, and they went around to like all over America and went to the biggest cities and auditioned all these actors. And we were one of them. Pardon me, me and two people from my acting class got auditions. One, they sent two of us out to LA We auditioned, they sent us back, then we auditioned again, and then we got this pilot. So they flew us out to Marina del Rey. They took this whole hotel and Jamaica Bay Inn, and then we were there for 3 months filming with them. Great people, great people.
I mean, to having, lived through it, I like to say, I know the 90s and early 2000s, people for a while was kind of given a lot of flack. But the funny thing is now, every music that you hear on TikTok is from an artist that broke and became a star in the 90s or early 2000s.
Yes.
Fashion trends are all now pulling from that time period. But MTV back then really was a reflection of the youth movement and
Yeah.
youth culture. And I feel that was about the 10-year time period where MTV was its most influential.
Absolutely. I agree. And then of course what TRL Live, because of the guys that show came to be about. So that was the thing. I mean, I remember when the
Yeah,
music video channel came out. I'm so dating myself
right?
at this point.
Yeah,
I'm 100.
right. That was yesterday. I, but really, because we talk a lot about pop culture here on the show too. Really, MTV, I feel, crossed over into like the world influence
Yeah.
on the backs of NSYNC, Britney Spears, Madonna, like Michael Jackson and Madonna and Duran Duran and those acts in the very early years, and Cyndi Lauper in the
Oh,
80s
yeah.
built, but Britney Spears, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys really took the brand of MTV to
Yeah.
international influence because of the fans.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
TRL at that time, like unless you lived through it, you really can't quite
Grab.
appreciate it.
Yes.
And
Yes. Sorry. I mean,
no, no, go ahead. And no, of course, you acted in many music videos, and one music video changed your life. And of course, that was "As Long as You Love Me" when you first met Brian. So tell me what that whole experience was like, and like when the love bird said, "Oh my God, yes."
that isn't this funny? Well, I had been in LA like 8 months, probably. Maybe I think so. And I was pounding the pavement, going to auditions, and I was actually going to an audition for, I think it was like Budweiser or a beer. I don't remember which one. And a casting director saw me go in, and he wanted to, put me in for an audition for this video that the guys were doing, I guess. So he secretly grabbed my headshot, put it in his, and talked the director into adding a sixth person. I had no idea of any of this. His name was RC, and he actually just did it because he wanted to go out with me. No idea. So
That
anyway,
backfired.
is that right? That was awesome. So yeah, he literally is the reason that Brian and I met. So he put my headshot in, called me, and he was like, had to explain himself, and I'm like, sure, and was paying. So I was like, hallelujah, we need to pay rent. So back then it was the Thomas guides, where you had to. We didn't have GPS, we didn't have anything. So where they were filming was like, I couldn't even tell you now, way out in east somewhere. And I was late, of course. So got the job, went in, walked in the wrong door, had to walk across their set. And I thought I was going in for some like training video for a restaurant. I had no idea what I was going in for. And got there, and Brian introduced himself to me, and I was like, well, hey, and that was pretty much the beginning of now. Um,
Oh.
we literally hung out all day, talked all day. We were on the shoot for a day and a half, I think, or 2 days. And then after that, they did another Backstreet's Back, I think. So he
Mhm.
invited me to that. We spent like 3 or 4 days together, and then the rest of our lives.
Oh,
Yeah. So it was
so
like literally love at first sight.
oh, see, it does actually happen.
It does. You know what's crazy too? Because when he said, "Yeah, we're big in Europe," I'm like, "Yeah, me too." I totally thought he was pulling my leg. I was like, "This guy." I'd never heard of them. And I'm like, Backstreet Boys. That's
Like
funny.
what?
Yeah. So it was good
But
that
that
you mentioned then, because I don't know how I would have reacted. I have a lot of, at the time, I had a lot of famous friends too. So none of that bothered, that wasn't influential on me or anything, but it's usually just the person and, their heart and their intentions. So obviously, glad
right?
I clicked.
Yeah, because of course, our true Backstreet uh, Boys fans will remember that they initially were pounding the pavement and the performance circuit in Europe, and was a big thing in Europe before they broke here in the States. And so, of course, you really were there from the foundation of the TRL fandemonium. I remember the Black and Blue tour where they were doing tours in all around the world in what, like 2 days or something crazy like that. And what was like that like back at that time period? You're just dating at that point. Boyfriend, girlfriend, and the foundation of your relationship. And there's all this fandemonium and on top press all the time and all, what was that experience like and growing your relationship during that time?
Oh gosh, back in the day, I think the very first time I ever joined him on tour, I believe it was in Amsterdam. And I'd never been, of course, but that day they couldn't say they had girlfriends. They couldn't say
Right,
they were dating anyone.
exactly.
So we were like, in separate cars, separate buses, things like that. So when I got gone out, pardon me. Thank goodness Brian's brother was there, because they were on that stage. They were doing the Backstreet Boys. You know how they did the everybody's Backstreet's Back. So all
Oh,
their
yeah, 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 yeah.
they were like, they had like, Brian had his brother do his werewolf, and then Howie had a sister, and so everybody had a double on stage.
Doubles.
Yeah, so it was cool like that, and it was like compared to now, it's crazy. But I remember seeing them on stage, and I'm like, these girls were, passed out. Like some of the girls were so smashed up on the barricades that girls were just like passed up, like passed out, sitting up, standing up like this. The guys would pluck them out. These security guards would pluck them out of the audience. And then there would be like an indoor area, like a basketball court, and they would be laid out. Girls would just be laid out, passed out. And I was like, what am I getting myself into? What
Right.
world? Like, it was pretty spooky. And I guess before the show ended, everybody was like, we're doing a quick out. And I'm like, quick out? What is that?
What's
I hadn't
that?
left at the stadium and Amsterdam because I didn't know what that was. So it was like you had to learn, like you had to jump in. And thank God I came from what I did, pounding the pavement and like figuring things
Hmm.
out in life, that I was smart enough to kind of figure things out, not to get left behind in their world. But it was hard. I mean, it was hard because you couldn't be seen together. Your only time was like on the bus. They all share buses together, and to be thrown into that world, and then wow,
Privacy is a challenge.
yeah, and every fan in the world hates your guts. It's
Mm,
like not one person liked, and really nobody on tour liked you because you were the girlfriend,
yeah.
But it changed, it changed. You pay your dues, I guess.
And, especially even like dating, things that you take for granted and just doing like normal dates and that whole process, when the person you're dating is someone that's like at the peak of their pop culture influence.
I think the
Uh,
good part of that too is that in Europe it was really hard. So if we did go out, there would be fans everywhere. But in the States, they weren't huge yet. So we could actually, the first, I guess 4 or 5 months of our relationship, we could actually go out and actually
Mhm.
have dates before it got super
Right.
crazy.
Now, as that, changed over the years, of course, because the Backstreet Boys are the best-selling boy band of all time.
Correct.
with over 100 million records sold internationally and just stacks of hits.
Yes.
You know, as that recognition, and really they're icons. So, you know, as that influence and stature then goes from just in Europe to around the world. Um, how do you maintain like that privacy? You want to go out, the normalcy, you know, you want to be able to switch off. Okay, you know, we're power couple, but now we're a couple. Mom and dad time. You know, what does that look like? How are you able to make that happen?
Well, now it's a little easier because,
Sure.
obviously they've been around for so long, but
Mhm,
we just like we started finding restaurants that we could go to that they would put us in a corner, a back room, or
mhm,
especially around here, like even though he gets recognized every time we go out, or Bailey now, or even me, because
mhm.
whatever, I saw your wedding on,
Right,
um,
right, right.
uh, we've got like little areas we can go to and restaurants that they're used to us, and most of the people are used to us. But when you get them, I mean, they seem really great, and they're like, "Can we take a picture?" And he was like, "Yeah." "Can you wait till after dinner?" You just learn to finagle it, and you want everybody to be happy, but you do need your time, so you have like
Mhm.
friendly boundaries that you follow, and if we need security, we'll take it. But it's such a way of life now. I don't remember any other way. You know,
Mm,
so it's just, you watch how you eat something because somebody's gonna take a picture of you eating a taco. But
right.
and then they're gonna post it.
And
No,
next
but
thing you know, oh, here's a picture of us with taco on our cheek on Us Weekly. And you're like,
yes,
great. Well, that's news. Yeah.
right.
I,
No, you just it's just life now, and you
yeah.
appreciate the people for supporting and loving, and it's cool.
Yeah. Now, also, you know, this is something that I've always wondered, you know, with couples that, you know, are in the spotlight and over a long period of time, especially with artists like, say, are away on film sets or they're touring. And from what I've seen a lot, it's like a long distance relationship at times.
Yeah.
And a lot of the keys to success is being able to travel with the person, but you can't always do that.
No.
So you have to trust your partner. And as you said, you know, these girls are passing out. And like in the TRL days, these girls were insane and pressing each other up against the window and hopping on the buses and the cars. You're like, good Lord.
Yes,
But
yes.
you're right, right. You know, let me die for my favorite Backstreet Boy, you know, and all that. You know, so how do you maintain trust in those situations where it's long periods of time? You can't be together, or also just the loneliness of being apart for a long time. You know, how do you work through that successfully in those dynamics?
Well, at first it was like super, super hard because we spent like 3 or 4 straight days together, and then he left for, I don't know, a month, 2 months. I can't, my
Mhm.
memory is so yucky. So I think it's really, really hard because all we had at the time, we had pagers, and
Right, the
right,
beepers.
pagers, and then we had the phone conversation. So those were our dates. So if he said you're calling me at this time and he didn't, that's like being stood up, in the very beginning.
Right.
And so I guess how his payback was, like, he would call me, and if it was like an hour later, whatever, I wouldn't answer. And he would call and he would call. So you had to play hard to get that way. But the trust, that's a big thing. Cause I will tell you, when we started dating, trust wasn't up there with me for me. Holding each other accountable, I guess the trust thing, just you feel it or you don't, how, in tune you
Mhm.
are with each other. As far as I know, what I know for now is that we've gotten through 25 years together. Um, just having to rely on each other. Communication is huge. Laughter is huge. Um, I say the plus of a long distance relationship is that you do only have talk. You can only, and at the time you didn't have FaceTime, so you only had your voice, and you only you had to communicate. You know, you had to know
Hmm.
each other through words. You couldn't type. There was no like, what did you mean by that? Or,
Right.
so it was true communication at that time. So you kind of knew each other better than if
Mhm.
you together sitting on a couch or watching TV or, had distractions. There were no distractions when you had to talk on the phone. Big phone
And the
bill.
thing
You
The thing is in relationships, all types really, but whether it's long distance or you see each other every day or maybe twice a week, what have you, you still have to trust the person, regardless of where the geography between you is. And at the end of the day, wherever the two people are, if the bond is true and you respect each other, you're going to be doing the right thing in each other's absence, and that wrong thing could happen just at the supermarket, so
exactly.
distance isn't always a key to demise, because trust has to happen regardless of each other's careers.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. In any and every relationship. So, and then I think about military families, think about they don't have contact. They don't have, so
Mhm.
I've got it good compared to, a lot of the people out there. So,
And so now also I know faith has been a big part of your family, of your relationship, and the strength of your relationship, and especially with all the hurdles and ups and downs that you have to deal with in life. Faith is really a big part of keeping us grounded in our relationships.
absolutely. Faith is first and foremost. Without God, there's nothing, and so I think faith in God, faith in each other, um, and this whole, the whole commitment. I always say, if you're going to get married, but get married for the intention of staying married for the rest of your life, and then you do that in a church for us under God. So um, you trust it. A lot of our hard times, you pray more when you're in a bad way than when you're in a good way. So just remembering to be thankful for the times when they're good and not just when they're bad, and to rely on each other and your word and his word.
And, I think just relating and speaking for myself, oftentimes we tend to praise and turn to our higher power in the times of bad. But also when the good things are happening and when the barriers are removed out of your life and you have more clarity and you're seeing things in different ways now and making better choices, that's also time where, I just say, praise God for giving me the reflection. Praise
Ab-
God for giving me this new level of wisdom and the blessings.
That's right. That's exactly, because I think if you don't thank him for the good, it's just, you got to level it out there, because that keeps you humble. That keeps you, I always say, it keeps you on track, and
Hmm.
I say to Bailey, you got to be thankful for both. And sometimes be thankful for the bad situations, because you learn from those, and, you learn what to do, what not to do, so that just, holds you accountable.
And something that I've really been meditating a lot on lately, as I've been, reaching different goals lately. And some of these goals I had a while ago, but didn't come till now and whatnot. And we have all our desires and our ambition and our drive. And, when you're, oh, yeah, I want this and I want this to happen and blah, blah. But sometimes, your timing isn't God's timing.
Absolutely.
And God has to put you through different lessons. You have to take that time pouring into yourself and your business, your craft, whatever it may be, so that when these things that you're praying for and wanting, that when it's delivered to you, you're ready.
Exactly. Amen to that.
Okay. So now the Backstreet Boys also are just known for their phenomenal tours and music videos. And really, I feel like not only at the back in the day that in a friendly competition, NSYNC and Backstreet Boys were kind of like going hip for hip, but also I feel like they pushed each other and challenged each other with the quality of their music videos, because I can't remember if No Strings Attached came out before the Backstreet Boys video, everybody with the werewolves and the puppets and everything. But I think they were first.
The
Yeah.
Backstreet Boys were definitely first.
Yes. And it was just really cool to see at that time. They always put so many amazing, like their videos were it still are, they're like movies, right?
Yes, yes.
And
Well, I was
and
gonna
now
say to that, that's when I first met Brian and I would fly out to Florida while they were rehearsing. I remember meeting NSYNC when they first got together, and they were actually rehearsing where the guys would rehearse. And so, it was a lot. Like, they were formed, and what
Mhm,
is would say no to because of pressure, that they were like, I will tell you, the first 5 years we were together, I mean, they were hardly ever home, like ever.
mm.
They were always gone doing, and started to get burned out because it was I mean, it was a tough schedule. And so
You
what
can
they would
only work at that level of output for so long before your
do,
body
yeah,
crashes.
absolutely. And your mind and your soul, you got to rekindle. And so I remember them, and not to talk bad about anything. And, Instinct coming up, they only knew hey, we're a group, just like the Backstreet Boys, but they literally replaced them. So the things that the guys couldn't do, the management would put Instinct in. And
Mhm.
so, the reason I think it was sore at first was because you were like, whoa, you're like, you started after us, and, everybody was modeled after somebody. So it was, that was a tough
And we
thing.
want to take a group and as a group and take a rest and recoup. And now
And then
you're
you're in there.
launching. Oh, yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So that was tough, and people don't know that story. People don't, I remember this so funny. Brian was on tour. We weren't married yet, dating. And I was casting with a casting. Oh, RC. We actually, he didn't want to date me anymore. We were casting together because I did all kinds of things in LA. I did every job I could do in the industry so that I would know what it was like, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, creating the scenes. And I remember we were in an IHOP over on like Holloway, and I think it was like La Cienega area. And NSYNC, the two or three of the guys got out of a van, and they were like, hey, Leighanne. And I'm like, oh my gosh, hey, Justin, hey, because I'd known him from Orlando, and they were hitting the pavement. I mean, they were coming out of
Mhm.
vans, not buses, so I saw them, struggling and pounding the pavement like I saw the guys. And so at that point, I was like, okay, I've got mad respect for you guys. You're hanging in there, you're doing it, you're pounding.
Mhm.
So, you could be mad, or you could just be, hey, welcome. And
Right.
they're good guys. They're great guys. So you can't be mad at them for the situation that they were in. But
Sure.
it's so funny how life was and how small this world really is in the interim.
Mhm. And both in sync. I mean, the Backstreet Boys are groundbreakers in many ways, but also, again, some a lot that I'm passionate about many things, but as I was saying when we were leading into the show, is about artist rights and ownership and having control over your craft and what it happens with it, royalties, a say over what you do. And NSYNC and Backstreet Boys were groundbreakers in the industry because, of course, they sued their former manager, for just a swell guy, misappropriate, right? Misappropriation of funds, among many other,
Yes, among
yeah,
other
not
things.
not not nice, things. But that takes a lot of courage. And like Prince, who also in that same leaf, just celebrating his birthday yesterday, rest in peace. He was one of the first iconic artists to say to other artists, do you own your masters? I won't work with you unless you own your masters. Do you own your material? And he fought with Warner Brothers Records and took a lot of flack because people just didn't get it at the time. But
Yes.
the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC were groundbreakers. One of the first group to sue their management and
Yeah.
say, no, this contract stinks,
Yeah.
and we're out here doing all the work. Why aren't we seeing the just amount of rewards?
They didn't make the profit. And I remember saying, you guys are working so hard for like $80,000 a year.
Mm.
Meanwhile, Lou's getting their millions and millions and millions. He took so much money from them. Um, it was just, I'm like, when you're in it, you're the artist and you're in it and you're constant. You didn't have time to look out. You didn't know really, the outside going in. So I know me coming in and having the mind that I do, I'm sure had a lot of opinions, but I think it helped them see, or husband see, what's, the reality of the situation was. So it
Mhm.
helped guide him into a way where we're like, wow, we need to, this is ours. They weren't greedy, and they didn't, they were totally gave, Lou props for putting them together, and, everything, but he reaped, like, he stole and stole and stole from
Oh,
these
yeah,
guys.
for those who don't know, he also made himself legally on paper a silent band member. So
Yes.
that way he could not only get the management cut, but cut as, quote, an artist. So he was double dipping.
Yeah.
And it's a cautionary tale. It's a cautionary tale for other artists who are big or coming up, about the importance of not just blindly trusting everybody, that you
Yeah.
have to read your contracts, you have to send it to a lawyer. Any manager who will get all twisted about you taking a proposed contract
Yeah.
to a lawyer, and a lawyer who can break it down in legalese that you understand, that's a red flag
Yes.
that
And
that
they didn't know
person
it
is
then. Think
shady.
about it.
But you don't know, you're young and
Yeah.
you're
And the
teenagers
parents
and you're
didn't know.
chasing your dream. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, like, it's changing now. But back then, the record industry had a long history of just exploiting artists and their desire to be famous. Uh,
Absolutely. More
but
than not, just the desire to work in the business. I know that,
yeah,
like,
exactly.
and taking advantage is, and again, it's happened for hundreds of years, like it's
Hmm.
happened in every scenario. So you either learn or you don't. And I think the
Hmm.
guys really, really taken that and gone with it. And so I'm very proud of them and who they are as a group.
And now's a really exciting time, because it's a whole different landscape now. And now there's so many different ways where artists can publish their work, where they can distribute their work. So many streaming services. It's not like before. It's arguable right now. Do you even need a major record label? Because you put your resources together, you can accomplish the same thing yourself and own more. And you
Without the
actually,
coop. Yeah.
right?
Without the cooping. And yes.
Right. So now you and Brian actually own your own record label together, which is just so exciting. So can you talk a bit about how that came together, and your role and what you do within the label?
Well, the reason we have a label is I did which movie? All of Jews. When I moved to Orlando for a little while after Brian and I met in California, and he had a heart surgery like 8 months into our relationship, and so I moved to help him recoup to Orlando. While he was recouping, I got an agent, did a movie out there. I was an independent, and signed on as an executive producer so that I could do the soundtrack. And so I had all the artists and put together the soundtrack, and in that created a record label. And we did it. We did it pretty well, pretty fast, so that we could control all the rights and sales and things like that. And from then we did Brian's solo album in partnership with, oh gosh, who was that? I'll think of it in a minute. So we did his solo album, and having the label is great. I mean, obviously super expensive, but where the money's going, where the push is going, that you own your own songs. Again, it's with Bailey, doing this album, this label, we're smarter because, you know, the things that the guys went through with their record label, and again, they were not only taken advantage of by their manager, but also their record label. So, sorry, it's, you know, it's a learning situation. You could either go through life, learn, you know, and I say digest, ingest all of this and learn from it, or you can be oblivious to it. I prefer to
Right.
learn. Yes. And because of that, I think, you know, we're a smarter family, smarter couple, smarter parents, smarter people. But we had our own record label, and it's actually a lot of fun. And I did Olive Juice, I did Megalodon, and every little thing I would do, I would put Brian in it if I could, somewhere in it, like a cameo, because he loves acting as well.
Mhm.
Um,
And you actually directed Bailey's music video, "Don't Knock It Till You Try It,"
yeah, we
right?
wrote, directed that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So now, of
We
course,
actually
you.
wrote Brian's Welcome Home treatment to his video as well. We did not direct that,
Oh,
but when Brian and I were on, we were doing a promotional tour, and we were in an airplane flying from one to the other. It's a little teeny itty bitty airplane, and he had an earbud in, and I had an earbud in, and we were writing the treatment to the song on the plane, and that's how that one came out as well.
so now, of course, Brian has also. I just think this is just such a, just heartwarming and feel good, and just really an example to other parents who, have kids aspiring to be in the entertainment industry and following in your footsteps. Brian has duetted on some songs with Bailey, and they've performed together, kind of showing him the ropes.
Hmm.
So, which I just think is awesome. Like, who better to learn from your parents? And
Right.
it's interesting that Bailey is country, but Brian is one of, like, the godfathers of modern day pop and dance music. So just talk about that kind of dynamic in the home, and then managing both artists who are different genres, and how you market both.
Uh, Bailey decided to go to country, which is really crazy. We were very surprised, because like his grandparents, like that live literally in our backyard, basically, they listen to country all the time. And it was old country, like the good old country back in the day. I think he decided he loves country. He loves all music. He loves every kind of music. I think he decided country because he didn't want to be pigeonholed into the pop thing, or always
Mhm.
the dad or whatever. He has the utmost respect for him, but country is, he loves country. Like I said, Loretta Lynn, like what Johnny
Mhm.
Cash, all those
Patsy
country.
Cline.
Patsy Cline, like that's his country. And of course now also everything else, but he also loved Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra. He's like that kid. He just didn't want it to be like always being compared, or always saying,
He
change.
wanted his own niche.
He does. And the funny thing is now he's very much like, I say he's Eagle-esque. He's like James Taylory, like he's like country
Folk
pop.
music.
Yeah, like he's just kind of floating in the middle somewhere. And his writing's so soulful. It's fantastic. We're just letting him find his way. So country's been a learning process, I will say, because I don't have the so many of the connections.
Reference point. Right.
Yes, is that I do pop. So we've been learning along the way. He's actually doing 2 shows at CMA Fest on Sunday.
Nice.
And
And
so
then
it's
he was opening up for
that.
some of the dates. Now, is he opening up for all the dates on the DNA tour, or
He
just
did.
some?
Okay, he did the first before COVID DNA. So he did 41 shows
Mm.
on the DNA. He's not opening on this one. He may pop out for a time or two, but he is not opening on this run in the States, in Canada. We're going to do some fun things that we have planned coming up that I don't have like in black and white yet. So I don't want to say
Right.
that happened. But him
In
and
the
Dad,
pipework.
Yes, yes. And him
Yes.
and Kat, when they sing, holy cow, they're when they sing a song together, it's magic because already it's magic with Brian, and you got the double whammy with those guys. I think it's just such a blessing. Like, I know that it would be great to have this huge label come over and throw all this money into Bailey and make him huge and famous so fast, but not, because I don't think right now we know what goes on in the business. We know how it affects you. We know how it can taint you or change you. So this is actually God's thing, God's timing, God's, we're his pieces, in this. And so I think he's learned so much in the past year, even, or 2 years. He's writing more. He's his own person. So following this path has been a blessing, I will say.
Now, I was watching some of the DNA documentary, and then I apologize, I forget the name of it, but it was the one when they all go back to their hometowns and
Yes,
take each other, which was just such a really insightful and creative idea. Like, so each other knows like the foundation of how they became who they were, which also populates into their own relationships. So I believe it was in the DNA documentary. Kevin was talking about like, well, this time around that they don't have a big record label deal, that they were all putting their money into this record, into the tour, and into the videos, and that this was the first time they were writing their own material. It wasn't just given to them, and that they had a voice, which just made me love the album even more. Like,
yes,
it's so exciting. I'm like, yes, this is them. This is their voice. So it hits you in a whole different way. So
absolutely.
so can you talk a bit about like that journey? And it just really excites me, and it really makes me excited and happy when I see creatives getting their power. So what was that like behind the scenes of that whole process, from the videos to writing the songs to choosing the albums, where they record for the first time, really making all those decisions creatively, like what that was like behind the scenes.
Um, there's not, it wasn't a whole, it's not a big difference, to tell you the truth,
Mhm,
because that they know what they do, they know how they work, things like that. I
mhm,
think they were a little lighter, a little freer. I think their attitudes and their interests were even more so. I think it was a little more fresh, like how it started, because of it was a positive thing. It went into a positive direction and they were in control. And this is like the first time. So I
mhm.
really feel like
In over 20 years.
yeah, and I can't speak for them, so to speak. But I just
Right.
know how, my husband, he just felt better about it, and being able to be more of a stronghold and a part into it. It's freeing,
Mhm.
honestly.
Yeah. And of course, now as the years have evolved, now family is very much a big part of the things. And so I just love the video for No Place
Yeah,
that incorporates all the wives and family into the music video, almost like a home video, and it gives a window into your family life, which is really nice.
it's nice. It's so funny because we were the first ones to have a kid, and it wasn't fun in the beginning because you know I mean, Bailey was, I always like to say, God's gift, because it was like a bit of a surprise. We weren't planning yet. It just happened. And so when we were like, wow, we're going to be parents, um, it happened at the right time. So that was great. But we were the first one. So we had to lay the groundwork for a kid on tour. That was difficult. But now it's like, I always call it romper room or whatever, because you go back there and there's like a billion kids. And it's good. It gives, again, it's another dynamic of tour. And now we are like, we've got a 19, almost 20-year-old, and they're still with their teenagers and, youngins and babies. And I'm just like, God bless you.
Right, right, right.
We're on the home stretch.
So, of course, as we said earlier, you are, you wear many hats, and but your wife and mom first, and businesswoman second. So, I want to kind of dive into these interesting dynamics. Now, how do you balance, wife and mother? And then manager, creator, producer, I'm turning to mom because I'm upset. Okay, got to put mom hat on, but now I got to look at you from a business end. So, how do you balance all that and within the dynamics of your relationships?
Well, that's I say it's like the longest class in history because we started when Brian and I were together. God, all he did had was me, and just like the other guys, if they had their girlfriends or wives, all you had to talk to is your spouse or your significant other, because you know how it was. She knows how it is going into all these situations. So I think I'm a person that separates very easily. So I could have like my sister working for me at the house and I could separate it very easily. A lot of people cannot do that. So
Mm,
that's a plus with me. So, and that's what I have to do even with Bailey when I'm managing him, and I'm obviously the label as well. Um, there's boundaries that we cross all the time. Like if I'm putting on my eyeliner and they're asking me business questions, I'm like, yo, give me a second. Let me finish
this
getting.
is me time.
Yeah, and for me to try to take that time, I had to. I'm still teaching myself, like, okay, you got to take this time. You got to take this time, because then if I'm down, everybody's down. If Mama
Right.
goes down, so and I run the house and I run, everything. So um, it's easier for me, I will tell you, than it was for them. Like, so Bailey's in a learning process to say, okay, I know it's like cliche to have a momager or whatever, but had I not been there, I know what the business is like. So it scares me to death to think of where he might be right now. I
Mhm.
I know everything about him. We homeschooled. We're best friends. So I know what he can handle and what he can't. So I think that's a plus. Where we go, in the future, if he has someone else take over or whatever, I'm open to that. I just want to make sure he's ready, and he wants to make
Mhm.
sure he's ready. And same with husband, like if I call him husband, if he didn't have someone to talk to and he, draws the strength. I remember when they were doing that big controversial Rolling Stones shoot, and it was a bunch of naked girls, and he was having a hard time with it. He literally had me on the phone. He was like, "Oh my gosh, like, am I doing the right thing? This is
Mhm.
how I feel." So if he doesn't have that person that I could separate myself, because I could have been this like jealous wife and said, "Stay away from that,"
Right, right, right.
like I have to think for him and let him decide, and that's what I do for Bailey too.
Mhm.
And I think that's just a blessing that I have, like that, a gift that I have had, my whole life. I've taken care of my mom my whole life, so I've always taken care of somebody in my
And
life.
time management is essential.
Yes, huge, huge. God, the guys aren't so great with that. My boys, I'm not saying guys in general, but for time management is huge, first and foremost. So, and I'm learning. I constantly learn. I love to be better and do better. And if I clearly can't do it, I'm all right. Somebody take it or somebody help me. I will definitely ask for help.
Right? And then departmentalizing, do you sometimes just say, okay, well, now I'm putting on my mom hat. So I'm here for you as mom and friend, but now I'm putting on my manager hat. So
Always.
as your manager, I'm telling you, and do you in return, like, do they turn to you and say, well, look, mom, I just need my mom right now. I just want to talk to you as mom. Or do they say, okay, manager, you know, this is my concern. Is that something that you kind of do in your communication with each other?
Absolutely. I mean, we don't have to necessarily say it. I
That's
mean, if
it.
it's late at night and we're talking, I was like, "Hey, bud, let's talk about this tomorrow." Where I'm clear headed or where I can be into that right now. Let's just be a family. So definitely, we have those boundaries,
Mhm.
and they're stronger now. You learn more as you go. Okay, well, we should have talked about that. That got heated. I think Bailey and I too have devised this just attitude where if we start to get heated with each other as in professional world, we just take a second. Hey, let's take a second. Let's walk away. Let's think about this and come back together. And we're like, all right. So that's actually worked really, really well for us. And everything's, trial and error. And it teaches me, I'm like, you're never too old to learn. You're never too, it's fascinating to me. Just how we can learn and better each other. In this whole process, and I enjoy it. I really do. I don't know. I can't be idle. I've got to be
I'm
like
that way too.
very good.
So now you also are president of Brian's foundation, Healthy Heart Foundation. So can you talk to us a little bit about the work of that foundation and also where people can go if they want to donate?
We've kind of dissolved that one because
Oh,
his mom started that way, way, way back when Brian first had heart surgery. And so
mhm,
she ran that for a little while, and somehow it fell into my lap. And I was more than happy to do it. But again, my plate was so full. So we did as much as we could for that. And then Bailey had Kawasaki's disease. So we kind of formed that. We would help families that couldn't afford when their children went into the hospital for heart problems or whatever. We would help them pay their bills, pay their, even just light and water and gas and things like that. Educate them. We, keep them in a good physical form so that they could be healthy, things like that. Now that we just kind of dissolved it, because I really feel like we were paying more money out for the people that we were hiring to run it
mhm,
than the people that were benefiting from it. I was like, well, like I would much rather just, give. We have it in a holding, and so I start giving to foundations that need it, or
nice.
other aspects of people that need help.
And for those who aren't familiar, can you just elaborate a little bit about what Kawasaki disease is?
Yeah, that was a whole thing. Kawasaki's disease is like it's kind of an autoimmune disease that it mimics all other disease. So it affects all the
Mm,
arteries in your body. It affects your heart. Uh, when Bailey didn't get sick. We never got sick. I think he's had the flu once in his whole entire life. And so when Bailey got sick, he had different forms of this, and we didn't know what it was. He had rashes, and we literally had to do research and find it. So it can enlarge your heart. It can cause aneurysms and literally
wow.
kill you. So we God, that was a tough one. He probably fought it for 3 months before we even knew what it was. And it came in forms of like, we thought something was poison oak, and then we thought he had strep throat, and then they thought he had hand foot mouth disease. Like it was literally
Wow.
the craziest thing in the world. So when we finally, he had a rash all over his body, and I'm like, wow. They turned us away at the emergency room twice. So we literally learned how to fight as parents and listen to your child and listen to your instinct. Huge. Instinct's huge for
So,
me. The 9/11 stuff, me not getting on that plane. Instinct,
mm,
is God's, gift to us all if we just listen. So anyway, we found the Kawasaki's in the hospital. I literally researched it. It was like either Stevens Johnson's or Kawasaki's, and they were trying to release us from the hospital. And Bailey, you would not believe him, he was covered head to toe in these horrible, like these rashes. He had to get
wow.
IV treatment. Like it was awful. They were wearing hazmat suits around him because nobody knew what it was. This kid's like 6 years old. Like, what's going on?
And
So we
so many, that's the frustrating thing is a lot of these rare diseases, especially autoimmune diseases, they mirror so many other symptoms of so many other conditions, which makes the journey to diagnosis so hard
that
and
much hard.
frustrating.
Yes. And he was
Yeah.
atypical. So the things that they had for Kawasaki's, the symptoms, he was all backwards. He had them at
Mhm.
different times. So that's again why they were like, it couldn't be that. So I reached out to some people and found actually Dr. Kawasaki. So
Mm,
I just went to the root, and before we left, I said, hey, could you do an echo on his heart? And this is how I know to do it. And they did it. And he's like, he's got Kawasaki's. And so they gave him IVIG treatment and
wow.
another day in the hospital that we were out. So we're huge advocates for, raising awareness for Kawasaki's disease as well.
Well, I mean, definitely it gets back to many of the things we've talked about throughout our interview about communication, faith, and just problem solving together as a family and as a unit, how we get past these challenges in life. And I apologize, I don't have the exact name of it memorized, but I know Brian has also in recent years had a rare vocal condition that has affected his voice,
Yeah.
and he's been successfully overcoming that now. But he's had to go into a lot of different vocal therapy. So that when we go through these things that are like the foundation of how we make our money and our passion in life, turning to family, for foundation and support is just so critical,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, it is. I think that's been a hard, that's his vocal stuff has been really a hard one because it's they can't pinpoint it again. Like they can't pinpoint why it is, where it is, what helps it, what doesn't. So
Mhm.
we've doctor after doctor, treatment after treatment. That's been another hard one too. I think we keep
Mhm.
getting things thrown at us.
Yeah,
Wow. It's tough, but again, you just have to work together and work through it as much as possible. And
yeah,
just keep kicking, keep going. I say just keep swimming.
right. Yeah, because like my dad used to say, you can either solve your problems or let your problems consume you. Either you're going to lay in the ditch or give up.
Yeah.
But if not, you have to live and you have to figure out how to get past this
Mhm.
and not give in to the obstacles.
Yeah.
Um, and family really is the foundation of that.
Absolutely. It's crazy. We've been hit with so much, like my mom's like had a bunch of stuff happen to her lately, health wise. I've
Mm,
had a bunch of stuff happen to me health wise, like seizures out of the blue for no reason.
mm,
Been through every doctor you can imagine. So I think that maybe it's happening to us because we're the persistent type of people that will try to get to the, bottom of it. And so that we could tell other people, hey, that's what we did with Kawasaki's with Bailey. We wanted all the shows that we could go on to help people, recognize these symptoms. I've got so many letters and emails from people that we've
mm,
like saved because they saw us on it, because we saw you, we knew what to do, or, because we saw Bailey.
mm.
So that's the blessing in the whole thing is that if we could create awareness and help other people, that's the whole point of, I guess, us getting these weird things happening to us.
Right? But
Yeah.
I think too that speaks to, God's timing versus your timing. You not sometimes seeing your full purpose as
Yes.
a messenger until later,
Yeah.
because now, you have this international platform and people who look up to you and fans from all around the world and who respect you. So now when these things happen that are happening to other people dealing with it and struggling in quiet, you can then through that platform of over 20 years say, hey,
Yeah.
this is how I got through it. I'm a person too.
Right.
Everybody has conditions and things that happen to them, and that stress them out and that they have to get past. And I think like that's a really beautiful thing because we're all struggling with something at
Absolutely.
some point.
Yes.
So now what advice would you give to other aspiring artists and also couples in business of, how to make it and not fall to the pitfalls, of business?
Oh gosh. That's a tough one. I would say for, for couples in the business, if communication first and foremost, trusting each other, being able to give yourself a safe place to debate an issue or talk and listen. That's huge. Not talk over, hear, but be heard in that sense, and kind of trust each other. And each one has a strength in different areas, in
Mhm.
that. Um, and in the end, it's, you know, it's really what you should do in life anyway, with relationships and friendships, and just having to keep some certain things separate. You know, even as when you're, I don't know if you have a children, but you know, even when
I
the
have
way,
my cat.
oh yeah, well, like
She's
the way
my
you parent
baby.
your dog or your cat or your parent your kid, you have to be in some sort of agreement to that too. Is, you know, like I have two
Mhm,
these two, but I just mean, like, if you're not in agreement of how you're going to handle something, in the basics, you can't do it in life. So communication is key, you know, understanding, and being open, huge, being open.
mhm,
And as an artist, you know, I think the thing that Bailey has learned, and I can't actually put words in his mouth, but what I see from him is he has had a lot of opportunities. Yes, his dad's like one of the biggest pop stars in the entire world. But that doesn't make it really any easier. It might open more doors, but you still have to do the work. You need to do the
and
legwork. You
have
need
the talent.
Absolutely. If you don't have the talent, I honestly couldn't say, "Oh, my kid's so great." Like, you know, the ladies at the ballet school and their kid can't do a jump or whatever. And they're like, "Look
Right,
how
right,
great she is."
right,
I would do that. I was like, "Bub, you sure you want to sing?" I mean,
right.
you could write, you know. So you encourage them in their strengths, and hopefully you see that real strength. But and for him to learn everything about the business, and anybody to learn everything about your business that you can. You'll be smart, and you'll know the right decisions to make, and maybe not get taken advantage of so easily.
Mhm. And, of course, the Backstreet Boys just have stacks of amazing hits, and they're just known for just their quality songs. All
Yeah.
of their songs are positive and uplifting, and even if it's like the slow songs, it makes you introspective. They're all beautifully written and lyrical and great composition. And like, unlike a lot of the artists now, their diction is
Yeah.
fabulous, and you can hear and
You can
understand
understand what
what
they're saying.
what they're saying,
You don't have to
which
look it
it
up.
makes you resonate with the songs even more. Just on a personal well, first of all, I just want to say it's just been a pleasure to have you on the show, to connect with you just as a woman and a mom, and just you're an empowering woman, and just a great role model. Also, I want to say, like, I came up in that era and decades just loving their music, but this show is also a little special to me, sentimental, because I lost my father 2 years ago. And when I was a teenager, when they were at the height of the thing. And so the Backstreet Boys music was one of the artists that we actually bonded and shared. And he loved their music. And one of his favorite songs, and my favorite songs back at the day, was "I Want It That Way." So we, I always talk and make jokes through music and lyrics. I've always thought in a musical way. So I remember as a teenager, I used to run around the house saying, "Tell me why." And he come from his day and talk about, "Really, Dad? Well, tell me why." And we always just, it was a lot of happy memories, just joking and having fun moments over the songs. So, this just has a special place in my heart, because it brings back a lot of special moments with my dad. And I just want to say how grateful I am just of all the amazing music that's been part of my life. I'm so excited to be able to meet you today and to have the opportunity to cover them later. And two, it's just awesome to see people who stand the test of time, overcome obstacles, and come out on the other side mature, seasoned, and not jaded, wiser, but
Right.
not jaded, and
You,
good people.
that's good. And music is life, right? So music is part of your life. So it's like the soundtrack to your life, right? So I'm glad that
Yeah,
Backstreet, or yours and your father's were Backstreet. That's awesome.
that's right. And
Thank
then,
you so
gotta
much.
practice my boy band
Oh, of course.
choreography.
I know 32 songs when you see the show. They just rip them out. So, and I'm
Wow,
always watching it going, "Oh, I forgot about that," every time. "Oh, I love this one." So, yeah, it's a
right.
great show. One of my favorites for sure.
So
So,
now, if our listeners want to follow you and Brian and Bailey on social media, where can they go?
oh gosh, we're on Instagram, all three of us. I think we're all just our names. Leighanne _Littrell, Rocks Picks, And Bailey Littrell, I think it's just, I should know this. I think it's just Bailey Littrell. There's an underscore there. That's Facebook. Not on Twitter right now. That was just too crazy. But I think they're all the social aspects. You could go to
So,
Brian Littrell, I think, .com and BaileyLittrell.com,
mhm.
and then all their things will be there.
And of course, you can go to Live Nation and the Backstreet Boys websites to get your tickets for the DNA tour. They're touring around the
They
country right
sold out
now.
last night at Rose Bowl,
Yes,
yes, or the Hollywood Bowl. Yeah. So that's
yes.
awesome. Well,
And
thank you so much. Thank you
it's
so much.
been such a pleasure. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And just thank you for just all the wisdom and just such a great interview.
Absolutely. Thank you. Take care. Bye.